Welcome back to a very special episode of Whiteout Weekly, the Big Ten Championship episode after the yearly pants wedding of Ohio State against Michigan. I did not for 1 second see that coming. Even when Michigan was stopping them in the red zone, it was like, oh, they have life left. Ohio State would get the ball back. I would just be like, you know what? They're about to end it here. But there's something in Ryan Day's head that, yeah, they're just now low bro to Michigan, which
One
makes
of the
us, yeah.
coldest moments from that game was Michigan coach Sharon Moore. I don't know if you caught it, doing the bow and arrow across the sideline to Ryan Day as
Oh,
they clinched it. But I
God.
thought that was a sweet moment. But Ryan Day spoiled that $20 million roster. But they'll very likely still make the playoff. But boosters and the fan base are not happy when you cannot beat the team up north.
And people are saying, like, yeah, they might win the national championship, but it's still like, well, Michigan can just be like, well, we beat you, so we're national champions. We
Yeah.
beat you in the game that mattered. Um, that was I just could not believe that, which put your Nittany Lions at 11-1 over the win over Maryland to face off against the undefeated, new to the Big Ten Oregon Ducks, coached by Dan Lanning. Game at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Thank God, 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS for the rights to become the new Big Ten champions and possibly the number one seed in the brand new 12 team college football playoff. Dave, when we sat here on the first episode, oh no, it's over. Left my Bible magazine, Phil Steele over there. I think you had us at two losses. You had us at
Hmm.
10-2,
I did.
and I believe I got us 11. I think I had us perfect 11-1. I think I nailed it.
I think you did. I think you're right. We'll have to go back and roll the tape. I think you had
I will roll that tape.
it.
But the controversy outside of the Penn State landscape was, which I had a little bit of a problem with. I know it's
Mhm.
name recognition. You want to get people watching your games, but a three-loss Alabama being ranked number 11 just seems absolutely blasphemous to me. When there are teams like, I mean, granted, South Carolina did lose to them head to head, but South Carolina is playing some of the best football in the nation right now. Just
Mhm.
beat Clemson on the road. And now Clemson has a chance to get in as a conference champion,
Mhm.
which would take SMU. What do you do with that? They have two losses. You're gonna Is Alabama then out? Seems like a whole mess right now because of Alabama.
Yeah, it's definitely a mess. It seems like they got them
Because of
in there at the
Alabama.
tail
If
end just
Alabama
based on
wasn't there, it
brand.
would be a mess, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean the fact of the matter, they got three losses, like you said. Two of them are to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Got blown out, mind you, by a bad Oklahoma team. Definitely do not have any business being in the playoff. The fact that they're on the fringe end of the bracket or of the final field just tells me that it's just because of the brand, but I don't think you can get them in there.
Yeah, pains me to say, but ultimately, yeah, it does come down to the brand recognition. If SMU does drop that game to Clemson, I would be worried about them just against any three-loss SEC team just because of the numbers, the views.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, but currently they have us at fifth, ranked number three, but facing Arizona State, which again is another weird situation happening out there. But I'm looking at this, I'm seeing Indiana versus Georgia. That would be a
Mhm.
matchup that I would absolutely love to see.
Mhm.
Love. And say it for the fifth podcast in a row. Every time I see that bracket, it just lights up my face. It's just so cool.
Mhm.
So,
That's with the Nits in the mix, baby.
like we mentioned, if we win, if we win, could become the number one team in the bracket. A loss, where would that, where would you project us at then? Probably because we lost to Ohio State, who's eight.
Should still net a home playoff game. I mean, that's where a lot of conversation has sparked, definitely over the last week for Penn State fans. We mentioned how shocked we were that Michigan pulled off that upset. No one really expected going into the Maryland game to have an opportunity to be able to go to Indianapolis. So that was definitely a bit of a shocker. And there's two sides that you've heard either in the media or over Penn State Twitter, Penn State social media is that, hey, would you rather lose this game because your path to a potential national championship may be a little bit easier? You would probably get a home playoff game at Beaver Stadium on the 20th or 21st, would likely be against one of those Big 12 opponents or another at-large team. And then that second game would look to be probably against a Boise State or an SMU in the quarterfinal. But for
I
me,
mean,
I
no,
mean,
no, extra game, take the bye.
would love to see a home playoff game at Beaver Stadium. I think anyone would. We can get that at some point in the future, but you have an opportunity in front of you to beat the number one team in the country, be the potential, like you said, number one seed in the entire playoff, and have that first round bye, which is critical despite no matter who you would be matched up against for that first game. Yes, it would be a neutral site, but you're talking about having the auto advance to the quarterfinal. So, and the team's geared up. They went to Penn State that to win conference championships. If you win that conference title, that team's year goes up around the Ring of Honor in Beaver Stadium. So there's a lot to play for here. A lot for James Franklin to be playing for here. But I think you got to go out and win it and screw what the path may or may not be. Just go out and
Yeah,
win the Big Ten title.
yes, yes, exactly my thoughts. And let's get into it. Big Ten total. Oregon favored by 3.5 points currently. Over under 50 on the dot. And we got the elephant in the room to talk about. James Franklin, 1-13 against top five opponents. The point differential in those 14 games, they've lost by an average of 14.1 points. So I saw this matchup, looked into it, and I was like, we're done. We don't stand a chance. So do you have anything that can convince me that we might be able to put up a fight in the game? Because it seems like they're such a well-rounded team that can kind of adjust whenever they want, and that's why they're undefeated. So give me some
They
kind of
are in a college football year full of, to put it blatantly, pure chaos, as we've seen, especially the last couple of weekends. Oregon has definitely been the most consistent. I mean, they're the only team standing without a loss. They have
sorry to
struggled in a
interrupt you.
couple matchups.
So
Mm.
people that talk about Penn State being like, oh, like everyone complains about Franklin only winning 10, 11 games consistent. Talk about consistency. This
Hmm.
team's ripping off 12 wins in a row, despite the
Yeah.
odds every time. Ohio
Yep.
State, like so. Sorry, go on.
But no, I mean they've been consistent. They've had some tough matchups that they've struggled in, whether it was early in the year against Boise State, still found a way to win that one, and then more recently against Wisconsin on the road at Camp Randall, where they weren't able to get the offense going, but again they were able to squeak out of there and get it done. They're with their record unblemished, but this team has shown flaws. They got an experienced quarterback who has been very consistent no matter where he's been, but ultimately if you get pressure on him, he does deteriorate and those stats aren't as good as they are when he's not, which sounds like a simple statement to make, but Penn State probably will be the best defensive line that this team has faced this year. So I think there's an opportunity for Tom Allen and co to get after it. So I think if they're able to keep the pressure on, Oregon's a team that has struggled mightily in the red zone as well. So where Penn State, that's been one of their strong suits and not giving up touchdowns and ultimately leaving opponents with red zone trips without getting any points at all. So I think the spread tells you all you need to know as well, with this being a 3.5 point line. For me, that's a Penn State line.
Yeah,
It's
that
the
shocked.
neutral crowd.
I thought it was gonna be 6.5 at least.
Yeah, likewise. But it's a neutral crowd, but I think the crowd should favor Penn State in this one. Not that Oregon doesn't travel well, but Penn State travels extremely well, especially to Indy. Just look back to 2016 when they pulled it off against Wisconsin. Penn State is a huge alumni base, especially in that Midwest region. So, especially, I don't know if you saw ticket prices, but I think the get-in price for this game was as low as $20. So I expect a heavy Penn State crowd, and think that could also
$20.
play in their favor. Yeah, I
Get
mean
that
nosebleeds way up, but still, you're talking about a top five matchup.
stinker way down.
Yeah, the old halftime switcheroo.
So we've talked about Oregon on the podcast before. How
Mhm.
every time I watch them, they're known for their quick screens, and then they'll hit a deep crosser for a touchdown. And they also implement that with just a ground and pound style with Jordan James, who's one of the most underrated running backs, I think, going into the NFL draft. I don't think he's talked about nearly enough. But if they're gonna do their sorry, their ground and pound game, it's gonna be tough. Penn State does have the seventh best run defense in the nation, allowing under 100 yards per game, 97 to be exact.
Mhm.
So it's going to be hard for them to run. But what kind of counteracts that? I heard a cool stat from, I forget which podcast, CBS affiliated. Penn State leads the nation in time to pressure, is what they call it. 2.3 seconds it takes for them to get to the quarterback. But for me, when I heard that stat, I was kind of like, all right, well, that kind of offsets, a quarter of Oregon's plays because they're not running, long patterns that are developing plays. So it's like 2.3 seconds, sure. But Dylan Gabriel's getting the ball out of his hands half the time
Mhm.
under that amount of time. So I think when it does come time for them to have to drop something, that's going to take a lot of, people having to protect back. That's when we have to get after them.
Yeah.
And offensively, my huge key matchup to the game is the cornerbacks versus this unreal wide receiver group, plus the tight end Jay Ferguson, who we cannot forget about. He's going to make a play or two in this game.
Mhm.
But they're led by Evan Stewart, who has had the most targets in college football without a drop. Unfortunately, last week he had two, but he is the go-to guy, very sure-handed, but the most dynamic player in that wide receiver room is Tez Johnson in the slot. Most touchdowns in the nation from the slot, leads the team in yak, running slants, crossers, quick screens. It's going to be a tough time for our defense, having to focus on the run, but also focus on this absolute speedster on the outside who can take a screen pass 70 yards down the field. And he actually has 465 yards after the catch, which would rank third on Penn State in terms of just total receiving yards. So, two guys to watch out for in that wide receiver crew. And then defensively, stud NFL prospect rising as Oregon continues their season. Number 55, you're going to see him a lot. Derek Harmon, 6'5, 310 pounds. He's their leader in pressures. So he's a pass rushing D tackle. 14 more pressures than the second place on Oregon. But he also has 20 run stops, which is tied for fourth. So going back to that Ohio State game, I think we kind of took our foot off, or Kotelnicki kind of took his foot off the gas with the running game. We need to absolutely dominate, get hands on Harmon, and just run them into the dirt. Fresh legs, Katron, Singleton, run them into the dirt. Tribula if you need to, Warren if you need to,
Mhm.
but just absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage. I think that's how we have to win, which I'm a little nervous about because they're not Ohio State or Michigan. I'll give them that. But against these big teams, we just somehow shrink with our running game. Like everyone loses like 50 pounds. We just can't push the line. So that's what I'm a little nervous about. Us being able to get a push on their defensive line as well as pass protect.
Yeah, I think if you look at their wide receivers, going back to your initial two impact players with Tez and Stewart. Stewart, highly regarded recruit, he's a transfer from Texas A&M, has just been an explosive playmaker. And then with Tez, he's missed a few games, and you can when you watch Oregon on film when he's not in versus when he is, they definitely miss his presence when he wasn't in there. So he just came back last week against Washington. I don't believe he played. You may fact check me on that, but I don't believe he played in that Wisconsin game, and you could see where their offense struggled. But against Washington, he was back in full form, and you could tell that he's healthy. So dangerous duo, but it's a great test for Penn State's cornerback room, namely AJ Harris, big time, also a big time recruit in his regard. That's why Penn State brought him in. He's
Mm-hmm.
got the SEC pedigree already. I know this isn't an SEC foe, but this is why he transferred to have an opportunity to play and play in a big time matchup. And then you also got Jalen Kimber, the other transfer on the other side. So definitely going to need those two guys to step up. And then with Harmon, like you mentioned on the D line, we as unbiased or we're a biased podcast, but Penn State's defensive
Yeah,
line
of
is
course.
is a
Why not
formidable
we?
as there is in the country, but Oregon's is damn near close. So it's definitely going to be a tough test for our O line. But yeah, those are definitely some key impact players.
Yeah, just looking down the PFF pressure list, it's just like, yeah, everyone's got over 20, over
Hmm.
4 sacks, tons of QB hits. So that, yeah, that's going to be key, as is every game in college football. Control the trenches, control the game.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So,
that's why for me, my
yeah,
two
no,
impact guys are staying with that same theme for Oregon and their D line. Two beasts coming off the edge that Penn State's gonna have to find a way to contain and deal with. First one, there's another fun name. Mateo Uiagalelei. Think I may have gotten that
Yes.
right.
Mateo.
He's the Mateo, not to be confused with DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback from Florida State. But sophomore, 6'5", 270, absolute force coming off the edge. He's got 12 and a half tackles for loss, 10 and a half sacks, six QB hurries, and two forced fumbles on the year. And then on the other side, you have the definitely the better of the two, and by far Oregon's best defensive player is Jordan Birch. He's the senior, 6'6", 295, 11 tackles for loss, eight and a half sacks, five pass breakups, and four QB hurries on the year. And with those eight and a half sacks, that's with missed time. He's missed a few games this year, so he very well would have finished with double digit sacks had he been healthy for all year. But with those guys and like Harmon, like you mentioned, it's going to be a huge test for Penn State's offensive line, who has not given up many sacks this year, only 11 or 12 on the season,
Hmm.
but they have not faced pressure like this since the Ohio State game. And when you think about Anthony Donka, who's out, so this is going to be a tall task for Nolan Rucci, who's played very well since stepping into that right tackle spot. But between him and Drew Shelton on the tackle spots, they're going to have to be able to hold their own and give Drew Aller some time because these guys are going to be coming. They showed it in the Ohio State matchup, where for the majority of that game, they just pressured Will Howard with four, and they were able to get to him, which totally disrupted that game. So that's you're exactly right, where the game's going to be won and lost in the trenches, and it's going to be critical.
Yeah, and I think we're also gonna see a lot of Luke Reynolds, your
Yep.
breakout star for the year. He's definitely gonna get a lot of PT in this game, just
Hmm.
helping out with chip blocks, maybe being a little tight end delay in case of emergency for Drew Aller, because yeah, this pass rush is unlike any other. So definitely need Katron and Nick Singleton to step up too in the pass rush game. And speaking of pass rush, my key matchup to watch and win in this game is going to go to two first round picks come April's draft. Abdul Carter versus Josh Connerly Jr., Oregon's left tackle, 6'4", 315. Season totals this year in 432 pass block snaps, only has allowed six quarterback pressures, one QB hit, and one sack all year long. Now, I'm not going to say that it's just going to come down to Abdul beating his man. They also have might be a bet their best offensive lineman, their center. So it's going to
Hmm.
come down to that entire unit working in terms of double teaming, passing off, maybe some stunts from Tom Allen, bringing heat when Oregon's not expecting it, when Dylan Gabriel's not expecting it. As you said, his numbers under pressure are not as good as when he's clean pocket. So I would kind of like to see. I know Abdul's a phenomenal pass rusher, but I would love to see him in that Michael Myers stance, just kind of roaming, because you don't really know what gap he's gonna just bully through on a couple
Hmm.
sets. So I think that's my main matchup to win is if Abdul Carter not necessarily can beat just Josh Connolly, but just impact the game with his just insane pass rushing
Yep.
ability and athleticism.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if he's not popping off the box score with sacks and tackles for loss, I mean, just his ability to garner attention to be able to open up things for guys like Zane Durant, who's had a monster year, and a healthy denied Dennis Sutton, as we've seen the last couple weeks, is definitely going to be critical in that matchup.
Yeah, the one thing is their center is also another
Yeah.
NFL first rounder, has not
Hmm.
allowed a sack on the year. So where they could, double team Abdul or deny, Zane's got to go up against an
Yep.
NFL prospect. So everyone's got
Hmm.
to pull up their bootstraps and get ready for a dogfight in the trenches.
Right. For me, for my key matchup, it's been the formula all season long. Again, except for that Ohio State matchup, which was the only blemish on Penn State's record, but it's got to be keep finding ways to get Tyler Warren the ball. At this point in the season, with this being the last Big Ten game of the year, well, granted, I guess we'll see in the playoff if there's another one, but no one no one has been able to find an answer for Tyler Warren, and a lot of that goes to Kotelnicki and his ability to put him in a number of different scenarios and different formations to scheme him open, whether it's under center, behind center, in the slot, out wide. They're finding different ways to get him involved. I think this is an amazing opportunity for Warren as well, with Heisman ballots officially open. I think they opened on the second for him to show the national media and the national audience what he's been doing all year long. But I know there's a lot of commentary where Penn State's offense is very one-dimensional. It's all through Tyler Warren, who's going to be the receiver that steps up ultimately. If they can keep manufacturing ways to get him the ball and make him the most productive guy on the field, then who the hell cares? Right. If he puts up another 10 catch, 100 plus yard, one or two touchdown performance, no one's going to care what the wide receivers do if you're hoisting up that trophy at the end of the game. So I think a lot of pressure is going to be on Oregon to figure out how to stop him. And I think if they can get him involved early and often and have Oregon scratching their heads at halftime, figuring out a way of how to stop it, as opposed to Penn State trying to figure out at halftime, how do we get him the ball? I think that's going to be a key difference here. But I think just keep using your bread and butter, get them the football, and big things are going to happen.
I was about to repeat what you just said. I'd rather see them do what they do in the second half of every game we've
Yeah.
seen in the first half
Hmm.
and then make
Yeah.
adjustments off that. But maybe that's
Yeah.
just how they roll. Speaking of receivers, though, do have some injury reports on Trey Wallace, and then opposite side, Elliott Washington, who he needs to play in this game. He's huge with the
Yeah.
amount of speed they have in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, big news. Franklin indicated this week or during the Wednesday practice session. So Trey Wallace, who missed last week's game against Maryland, the way it was worded was that he tweaked something, but they were optimistic that he'd be good to go. Was
Okay.
a full participant in practice this week, so it sounds like he's ready to go. And for Wallace, although his stats don't pop off the page, he's definitely been Penn State's most productive receiver, especially when you look at 20 plus yard catches. He's been able to stretch the field the most out of that group. So that's a huge win to have him back. And then Elliott Washington, who's carved out a very nice role this year for him in the dime package and in the slot. It's
Yeah.
we've seen some really good things from Aldavian Collins, but it's going to be good stuff to have Elliott Washington back.
Yeah, his tackling ability is definitely helped up for the loss of the beginning of the season at the safety
Yeah.
position. So
Mhm.
speaking of safeties, my Iron Lions to watch because I couldn't decide who, but it's going to be Jaden Reed and Zaki Wheatley, aka the Turnover King, aka the Faceless Defense. Mentioned it tons throughout this podcast. We're going to see so many screens, tons of screens trying to get their speedsters, playmakers out in open space, find green grass. And these are the guys that are going to have to read those plays, either make the tackle head on, straight up, not miss tackles like we unfortunately have been this year. We've kind of cleaned it up over the past couple of weeks, but I've had problems with that. These are the two guys that I think are crucial to that because
Mhm.
Jalen Kimber, AJ Harris stuck on a wide receiver block who's making that tackle. It's going to be one of them all with the safety, no one behind them. So not only that, they have to deal with Jake Ferguson too at the tight end position. Maybe Tony Rojas can deal with him one on one. doubt it, but they're going to have multiple assignments during this game that they're going to have to execute at a high level. And I believe full heartedly that both these guys are up for the task in this game. And in fact, I'm going to call, I don't know if it's going to be a forced fumble, him, Zaki, sticking his head in on the tackle, or just reading a play like he does and just picking off a pass. But I think Zaki Wheatley is going to get a crucial turnover in this game. That's my bold prediction for the Big Ten championship. Zaki
Dig
Wheatley, huge turnover to change the momentum of this one.
Love it. For me, Iron Line to watch. It's on the other side of the ball. It's the reason I'm rocking the shirt.
There he
Drew
is.
Aller.
There he is.
Drew
Mr.
Aller, man. This is a huge moment for him. He's been big all season. You see the jump in the numbers year over year from last year to this year. Yes, the touchdowns don't necessarily pop off the page, but he's still working his way through the Penn State record books in regards to passing touchdowns. And if he were to decide to come back next year, he'd probably be the leader in just about everything from a QB standpoint. But ultimately, when you look at the big games, he's faltered against Ohio State and Michigan. He did again this year against Ohio State, where it wasn't his best game. So this is another opportunity for him in his legacy to really have a big time performance. And it's about making a statement where there's a lot of comments or the notion that he's a game manager, which is fine, and he's able to keep the offense running and win games. But in a lot of Penn State fans' minds, and what we expect is that he's the difference maker on the field at the quarterback spot. That's why he was the number one QB recruit in the country. So expectations are high, and the this is a huge game for him to cement his legacy for himself and also the recruiting class that he came in with to put Penn State back on the map. So
Yep.
my bold prediction
Yep.
is that Drew Aller's going to have a key critical drive to put Penn State in front and ultimately win the Big Ten title in this one.
Yeah. And so game manager, why is that such like when you say that, it's like it has like a negative connotation to it. It's like a game manager, someone who is implementing the playbook pretty much to perfection, unless it
Hmm.
goes awry, then it's like, oh,
Yep.
he's a game manager. But if you're a game manager, you're literally taking the playbook, executing to perfection. The stats might not be there, but
Hmm.
it's like, why does that have a negative connotation that you're a game manager? You're literally the quarterback of the team. That's what you're supposed to do. Manage the game. Like that made no
It
sense.
does.
It's an oxymoron.
It creates yeah, it creates the notion that that position is just plug and play, where
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
someone that
yeah.
can manage and follow directions, you can do
That
it.
you're
But
not make that
ultimately,
you're
what you
not
see from
creating anything.
Aller
Yeah.
and the jump that he's made has been remarkable, especially with his legs and the ability to extend
Yeah.
plays and the fieriness that he's brought to the team this year from a leadership standpoint has has been day and night from what we saw last year. So that's been a huge step in his growth and his development, but that ability to extend plays and make plays is going to be critical with all that we talked about with Oregon's defensive line, where they're going to be bringing the pressure
Yes.
and
Great
going to be a
call.
tough matchup for the O
Great call.
line. So Drew's going to have to keep some plays alive and ultimately find the guy downfield. So it's going to be a big game for Drew.
Exhibit A and B. USC, right? Julian Fleming.
Yep,
Stu plays.
yep, that's
Is
right.
that a
Big
is that a
fourth
game
downs.
manager type play or like what are people talking about here? I don't get it. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I know the spread is a Penn State spread. That plus 3.5 shocked me when I saw it when it first came out. I'm just worried that this Oregon offense and this Oregon team is too good that where if we play our typical game of slow start in the first half, get down. 10 points, maybe 13, 14 points, that they're too good for us to make those halftime adjustments come back from. So I think I hate to say it, I don't think we're going to be winning at halftime. I do think this will come down to either a critical decision by one of the coaches or whoever has the ball left. I think the first half is going to look like we're going to absolutely kick our ass. Second half, we're going to come back, and it's got to come down to either Oregon making a mistake, Penn State making a mistake, James Franklin making a bad call, Dan Collin making a bad call, Dan Lanning making a bad call. Yeah, it's going to come down to the last drive. That's my prediction. And think, I mean, I think Penn State wins it by a field goal. Barker from 29 to win the
I
Big Ten
did not think you were
championship.
going that way at all.
That's my prediction. 23
Did not
20.
sound like you shocked me there.
23-20. I think points are going to come out of premium. That's a big thing that you brought up earlier is Dylan Gabriel's troubles on red zone. I really hope
Mhm.
that continues. I hope we see some of it in this game.
Mhm.
And I think people think this is going to be like a shootout, but I think points are going to be at a premium in this game.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's going to look bad at halftime, but ultimately, I think yeah, give me 23-20 Nits. What do you got over
You
there?
almost had it dead on.
Lollipop land. 50 nothing, 60 nothing.
No, you almost actually
I'm
almost had it dead on
messing.
with my prediction. I going into this one, it feels very much feels to me like it's gonna translate a lot like that Ohio State game did, where it's gonna come down to some key opportunities and whether or not I think really on the Penn State front, whether they've learned from it and whether they can execute. When you go back to the Ohio State loss, all season you look back and say, what if they gave Tyler Warren the ball on the goal line instead of running the same running play 3 times in a row, knowing what Tyler Warren can do? Or what if Ohio State didn't come away with that miraculous interception in the back corner of the end zone? But no matter how you feel about it, those are still key moments in that game that Penn State ultimately did not come through on, which I think the same opportunity will present itself in this one. And you got to have the hope and the faith that they've learned from it. So I
Gotta have
do
faith.
think this is a close ball game. I do think it stays close all the way through, even at halftime. And I think Penn State's comes away on top 24-20.
Okay. All right. So is that going to be us up 21-20 and then kind of bleeding the clock, taking a field goal to ice it, them getting it back and trying to score?
I actually had it Penn State down 20-17. Drew leads us down on the game winning
I love the way you're thinking. I love it. I love that.
drive.
That's perfect. All right. Yeah.
And I will
It's
be
gonna
a
be a
ball
fun
of
one. I
stress
mean,
the entire time.
all the talk. Here we are. We're in the fucking Big Ten championship. Let's celebrate that for a second.
Look at us.
When we started this fucking podcast, I there was no chance I thought we were ever gonna be doing a Big Ten championship podcast. But lo and behold,
Yeah.
conferences got realigned. Things became even. And now here we are facing Oregon in the Big Ten championship. If you told me
Hey,
that,
it worked.
if you told me that when we started this podcast, I'd be like, "What do you want? Money? What are you homeless? Like, do you need money or something? Like, what's going on here?"
Hey, and
Uh,
speaking of conference alignment, the sweetener is we're going for the Pac-12 sweep here. We've gotten
Yes, I forgot to
UCLA. We've
mention
gotten
that.
USC. We've gotten
We'll be
Washington.
we'll be the only
We
team.
won
I think
Oregon, baby. We won the Pac-12 sweep. Welcome to the Big Ten.
who is the other? I think there's one other team to play all the three out of the four newcomers. I believe it was Michigan.
Was it Michigan? I don't know. Did they play UCLA?
I don't care about
I
them,
have to
but
go back and check.
anyway, there's one other team that played three of the four. So yeah, we would
Mm,
ultimately hold the Pac-12
yeah,
gauntlet, just snapping
yeah.
them out of existence out of the Big Ten.
Big Ten champs and Pac-12 champs. Same season.
Speaking of Big Ten champs, it looks like it's all but over in the Big Ten betting bonanza, despite us taking a week off. Week 13, 2 weeks ago, was not good for Davey. Another 0-3 week. I went
Mm.
2-1. We'll get into more of that and how the Croatian Bear might retain that sweet, sweet dumbbell standing over my left shoulder right there. And that will get into the conference championship edition of the Big Ten betting bonanza. Is a special conference championship edition of the Big Ten betting bonanza. And things are swinging back my way. We'll just go over the season totals because we did miss last week. Apologies. Hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving, made some money, had some quality times with friends and family. So on the year, again, only betting Big Ten games. Dave, 14, 21, and 1 for 16 bonanza points. Now, I I don't have it on me. I have my notes in this book, but that little brown book, when I pulled that out, something
Mm.
happened. I think I
Yeah.
hit a rift in a wormhole or something because I just went on fire. I was 6 games below. I was 10-6, 6 games below 500, and or 10-16, excuse me. And I went 3-0 3 times in a row, which brings me to 19-16 and 1 with 27 bonanza points. So my quest to be above 500, me and Mr. Baggins here, has excelled so far. Don't want to jinx it. So Dave's down, what is it? 11 bonanza points. There's a very slim chance he's coming back. So we're gonna shake it up a little bit, give him a chance. And if Penn State does what we hope, I don't want to jinx it. So I'm trying to find words that won't say what I'm thinking. Does what we think they will do. He'll get more opportunities to get back into this competition. I'll have to mail me back that 10-pound dumbbell. And as the leader, I'll give you the pick because I know what your pick is. So why don't you just
Mm.
go ahead and say it?
Don't know if you know exactly what it is, but let's see here.
You should take it because I'll just take it from you. It's +3.
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
Going with the
Let's hear
total.
it. Let's
Going
hear
with
it
the
then.
total.
Ready?
Going with the total. Under 50.
Under 50.
Points will be at a premium, like you said earlier. It's going to be a close ball game, neck and neck, and
Bastard.
I
Why
don't
did I
think they
give you
break.
the first pick? All right. Well, if you really want to get James Franklin here, I'm gonna throw a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Let's go Penn State money line. Why not?
Oh,
I don't even have it written down. I don't know what the exact money line total is. I'll find it right now. but give me Penn State money line.
Got it.
It is right now on DraftKings plus 145. So that'll be a plus three for me.
Yeah.
Plus 135 under 50. That was my first pick. Under 50. That's what I was like. You take the money line, I'll take the under. Backfired.
All right. All right. Pick number two. Despite your feelings of Oregon's going to run away with it in the first half, I think it's going to be neck and neck all the way through. So I am actually going to take Penn State first half line plus 2.5.
That's 2.5. Okay. That's 2.5. First half. What's the money line on that? Or yeah,
Let
2.5 in
me
the first half is kind of weird. I would take the money line there. That'd be
see
plus
what we
three.
got.
Just trying to help you. You know,
Hey, I appreciate that.
it's getting lonely at the top.
Plus 140.
So Penn State first half money line plus 140. That would be a
Take it.
plus three.
Yep.
All righty.
That's what we want.
1 pointer, 2 pointer on the board. All right. Two, and then we'll get into our anytime touchdown scores. Cannot be running backs. Can be quarterbacks rushing the ball. But my second pick is going to be again another half play. Penn State second half plus 1.5. I think they are going to be down at halftime. I think they are going to outscore the Oregon Ducks in the second half to capture the Big Ten championship. Big Ten championship. So second bet,
Second
Penn
half
State
team.
second half plus 1.5. Probably should take the money line, but I'll take the plus 1.5. For touchdown scores, pretty sure there's an obvious one. So why don't you
We want
go
one from each
with
team,
one?
right?
Yeah, one from each. Both will be plus three. Yeah, why not?
All
Yeah, plus three for both. Rushing or
right,
receiving.
first, I'll go with the Ducks. I'm gonna go with Dylan Gabriel, rushing touchdown.
That's a
Likes to use the read option. He's got some wheels. 7 rushing touchdowns on the year. I think he ends up finding the end zone in this one, unfortunately.
yeah, that was gonna be my Ducks play. But you just gave me one of the easiest picks of all time. Tyler Warren.
Yep.
Passing. Yeah, passing. That would
Yeah.
suck.
Pick
But
pick
rushing,
what
receiving.
how.
Come on now.
How?
Give me that. Tyler Warren. But now I need Duck. Oh boy. Okay. Who's your knit?
All right, for me, you took the easy safe pick. I'm gonna go with the spicy pick here and keep it with another quarterback. Give me the cover king, Bo Prabula. Finds the end zone in
Ooh. That would be spicy. I could see that. I really could.
uh
Whatever PAU can't bet on uh college player touchdowns, college player props. I wonder what his odds are for any time touchdown because I could totally see that
Yeah,
happen.
I'll look it up after that. Plus 1,700
Oh
on
my,
DraftKings.
I might Venmo you and ask you to put that bet for me. A small one, responsibly.
Well, I can't place it. I can't place it in Georgia.
Oh, you can't.
I just have to.
Where are
Yeah.
these places that people are getting college
I don't
like
know.
player props? I'm seeing it all over the place. All right, I'll finish it out. let's pretend that we're going to tight end weekend. Got talked about before, not part of the wide receiver group, but I think is going to be involved in the scheme because the wide receiver group is going to get so much attention, and that is Jake Ferguson. Again, another NFL draft prospect. I think Jake Ferguson will find his way to the end zone despite their red zone troubles. He's a big body. I think the simplest way for them to finally get rid of that bugaboo off their back of red zone turnovers is just be like, hey, box that dude out. I'm throwing it right in your chest.
Mhm.
Dan Marino style or John Elway style with the cross right in the chest. So that will do it for our first ever Big Ten championship preview. I cannot wait. I can't believe that we're playing, first of all, in the Big Ten championship. Secondly, I cannot believe that the 12-team playoff is here and we can keep doing podcasts for you guys. We absolutely love to do it. Thank you so much for listening, however you are on YouTube, Spotify. I think you're even on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. You guys are what gets the job done, keeps us independent, keeps the lights on, and go Knits. Let's win the freaking new Big Ten. First ever. The first ever champs.
Go, baby.
Big Ten. Let's do it. Why not us?